What do Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reaction, the show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Doc, and a lifelong sports fan, and again, a fantasy football enthusiast. So, I truly love fantasy football. It's really what got me into the NFL. I used to be a pure college guy, and then starting to cheer for players as opposed to teams really got me into the NFL, and I am a homer all the way. So give me an Atlanta team any day of the week, particularly the Braves, and then that turned me into a Falcons fan down the road. Now, real quick, I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the 2023 season. Please consider subscribing if you have not done so already. It really helps me reach more people and helps this channel grow. But thank you so much, and without further ado, let's talk a little bit more fantasy football. Now, I've already done another video where I talk about the first 5 rookie Superflex dynasty prospects, and I will link that in the description above right now. Feel free to watch that video, but I'm going to move on and talk about number 6 through 10 in a rookie Superflex Dynasty League draft scenario. So this basically means you are looking at teams that already have most players drafted onto them, and you're now looking to add through depth at the rookie position, and you're looking at a functionally 2-quarterback league. So we've already been through the top 5 real quick. Bijan Robinson, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, C.J. Stroud. Now we're moving on, and you would think maybe Will Levis would fall somewhere in here, but nay. When you look at consensus, he does not fall in the top 10 for consensus. Consensus, after the first 5, you're looking predominantly at receiving options, and this is what I was saying earlier. There are not a lot of running back options this year, so if you are a running back needy team and you're hoping to build depth in the draft early, you're going to need probably one of the first 4 picks to guarantee that you get a running back. And even then, having one of the first 3 is a better option. So you're going to have to do some massive trading to get there. But moving on. Right off the gate, let's start out with number 6 overall, the first wide receiver on the board. And I should say that these are very, very close overall, with this exception. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Seattle wide receiver. Now, is he going to be good this year? I don't know. I really think that with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who both commanded over 100 targets last year, he may not get as much love as everybody would like to say he's going to get. Combine that with the fact that they've got a dynamic running game as well, and I just don't know that he's going to see a lot of action this year. But Tyler Lockett is long in the tooth, and he's probably going to be retiring sometime in the next few years, or he may take a cliff dive for his production, as usually happens with receivers approaching that age 30 mark. And I think that he's somebody who you would want to have in the future, but he may not be the most productive guy this year. But for dynasty purposes, you're looking to build for the future. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, Ohio State wide receiver, did not play a lot last year. He had a nagging hamstring injury. In his games that he was in last year, he really was not a major component for him. But in the 2021 season, he was a beast of a man. He had, a total of 581 snaps, 369 in passing, and then 212 in run blocking, so he's good in both areas. Had a 90.2 PFF grade in that year. Last year, again, not so great. People are going more off of what they saw his first couple of years versus what they saw last year. But he's going to be predominantly occupying the slot in Seattle to start with, so he currently is going as the number 1 wide receiver off the board in Dynasty Fantasy. Again, I don't think he's going to be particularly helpful this year, and I think he's being drafted way too highly in things like Underdog, where he's like the 34th, 35th wide receiver coming off the board. You're really taking a home run swing over guys that have been a little bit more proven commodities at that point. But again, that's just my thoughts on him. The injury history bugs me a little bit, but I don't know how I feel about him overall. But moving on to number 7, the guy that I think will probably make the most impact immediately this year at the wide receiver position is Jordan Addison, former USC prospect who has graded out over the last 3 years 69.1, 88.8, and 81.5 in PFF. Had a great year this last year, 335 passing snaps. He took 77 at the slot and 253 wide. He had 59 receptions on 79 targets, 875 yards, and 8 touchdowns this last year. Previous year, he went absolutely bananas and got 17 receiving touchdowns. And again, you are now putting him on a Minnesota team that is missing Adam Thielen, a guy who's been a core member of that team for at least the last 5 years, and now somebody's got to occupy that position. Last year, there were enough targets to go around for Jordan Jefferson. There were enough, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne. There were enough targets in this passing offense to supplement all of those guys and to take care of Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison in the running back position as pass-catching backs. So I look for him to functionally step into that wide receiver 2 position to be the immediate replacement to Adam Thielen, and probably has a little bit more upside given where he's at in his career. He is a fairly young guy. He's only 21 years old right now. He's going to be 22 closer to the end of this coming season. But again, he's got a little bit more gas in the tank, and he's one of the highest touted wide receiver prospects this year. I think he's going to end up finishing as the best rookie wide receiver this year, and I'm just saying that flat out. So that's just my thoughts. I don't know how he's going to compare in years to come when Kirk Cousins is no longer a member of the Minnesota Vikings and they're looking to figure out what they're going to do at the wide receiver. I also think Justin Jefferson could take a step back if Kirk Cousins is no longer the quarterback and they don't find somebody with similar talent to come in after. They've already said that Kirk Cousins does not have a guaranteed extension after this season. So I think his play is going to be probably the best of any of the rookies this year, but he's going to be highly, highly, highly dependent on the play of Kirk Cousins. Next, we have Quentin Johnston, a TCU Horned Frog who got to play for the national championship and got absolutely butthurt by my Georgia Bulldogs, who has gone on to be one of the top selections for the LA Chargers. Now, Chargers have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Justin Herbert, or best rising stars, I should say. I look for them to be a very competitive team this year. They have Mike Williams and they have Keenan Allen at wide receiver right now. Both of them had injury concerns last year, and they had to lean on guys like Joshua Palmer and tight end Gerald Everett last year during the middle of the season, which really hurt their overall prospects. But Quentin Johnston is basically coming in as a 6'3" beast of a man, and right now it looks like I would predict that he's going to play on the outside along with Mike Williams, and they're going to throw Keenan Allen into the slot. He has some inherent value. Last year he played 14 games, has 60 receptions on 97 targets, 6 touchdowns, averaged 17.8 yards per carry, had 1,067 yards overall. Love him as a wide receiver prospect for the future. Again, a guy because of a crowded wide receiver room that I don't know is going to get all the love this year. Obviously, Justin Herbert does have a connection with Joshua Palmer, who has probably now moved into that wide receiver 4 spot. If anybody gets hurt, Quentin Johnston's probably going to go off. And Keenan Allen has a strong injury history, so there's a pretty good chance that at some point this year, Quentin Johnston's going to be throwing up wide receiver 1 numbers for at least a short period of time, and that may skyrocket him into his ultimate position with the LA Chargers, what they would ultimately like to see him become. Now, he's a guy that I think is pretty solid overall. He's going as, he is consensus number 8 in rookie drafts for Dynasty Superflex. He's a little higher, actually, if you take away the Superflex component, as pretty much all of the quarterbacks outside of Anthony Richardson fall outside of the top 10 if you're looking at non-Superflex formats. But I do like Quentin Johnston. I just don't necessarily like the situation that he's in. I love the quarterback, but I don't like that he is the 3rd wide receiver in an already wide receiver heavy room. Moving on, we have the number 9 guy in Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a Boston College prospect who ended up as the 1st round selection for the Ravens, and he will be potentially the top wide receiver candidate to receive all of the love from Lamar Jackson if Rashad Bateman doesn't end up being that guy. So he is either the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2. And I'm also saying that Odell Beckham Jr. a little bit long in the tooth, is not going to return to the form that we have known him as in the past. Now, if Odell Beckham returns to form, he could easily take over the wide receiver room. He will be a mentor to Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a little bit older as one of the wide receivers coming in. He'll be 23 at the start of the NFL season compared to guys like Quentin Johnson we just talked about, who's going to be basically in the middle of his 21 year. So he's not going to have probably as long of a career, but still could have like a 6 or 7 year solid career in the NFL. But Zay Flowers, last few years, he's finished 72.7, 73.0, 75.5 in PFF grade, so pretty consistent. Last year, phenomenal year, 78 catches on 124 targets, 12 touchdowns, 1,077 yards. So pretty good play from a guy who was at a pretty much lesser school, somebody, a school that was not really competing for anything of note last year, and played pretty well overall. I don't know that I consider the ACC to be the best competition, but Zay Flowers certainly has the skills that could translate to the NFL. He's a little small, so he's probably going to be playing slot. He's 5'9", 182 pounds. He does run a 4.42 40-yard dash, so a guy that could have a lot of potential here, and a guy that could be a dark horse to win Rookie of the Year, or at least wide receiver Rookie of the Year from an NFL standpoint. But I don't know that I love him overall for this year. I think I like him a lot better next year as he has a year to grow. You still have Mark Andrews, who is basically the wide receiver one at the tight end position in Baltimore. And you still have guys like Rashad Bateman, who's now been there for 3 years. I think 3, it might be 4 now, but I think he's been there 3 years, who has some chemistry with Lamar Jackson that he's going to have to beat out. So he functionally is the wide receiver 3 in this offense right now. And again, we do know that they're a run-heavy offense. So I don't know if he's going to be the best option this year, but certainly a guy that's going to go in the top 12 of fantasy drafts from a rookie standpoint this year. And moving on, finally, we have number 10. I was genuinely surprised when looking at this and coming up with my consensus rankings. You have Dalton Kincaid, tight end at Buffalo. Now, Dalton Kincaid is coming from Utah. He's a Utah Ute. Had a pretty good year overall this last year. He's been a predominantly receiving tight end while he's been with Utah. He played in 14 games in 2021 and 12 games in 2022. In 2022, he had 401 pass snaps. He had 142 in-line snaps. He had 70 receptions on 93 targets, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. Pretty solid overall. Now, Dalton Kincaid is going to be this year's flash in the pan. I think he is going to take another year or two to develop. I still think Dawson Knox is the better prospect this year in regular drafts to take. Tell me the last time that a rookie tight end came in and just absolutely blew up the league. It doesn't happen often. There is a strong learning curve at the tight end position. Now, he is going to benefit from having possibly the best quarterback in the league, second only to Patrick Mahomes, throwing him the ball. But again, we know that that offense goes through Stephon Diggs and it goes through Josh Allen and Josh Allen's legs. And everybody beyond that is just a secondary piece. Now, again, he is a guy that you're taking for the future. He's not a guy that you're going to be taking now. If you're taking him for this year, you're making a foolish mistake. He is not going to be the guy that wins you a fantasy championship this year. But he is a guy for Dynasty to look at in the future. Now, the guy that I'm personally looking at in the future, and I think will be a top 5 pick next year, I hate to see him go, but Big Brock Bowers. You want to talk about a tight end? You want to get a tight end that will be a Travis Kelce-esque prospect right out the gate. Big Brock Bowers, UGA. I look for him to have a phenomenal NFL career, and he's a guy that I think will blow any of the tight ends in this draft or the last couple out of the water. But guys, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really helps the channel grow, but thank you for watching, and as always, rise up.